Hello, everybody. Welcome back for another episode of TFT Study Hall with your hosts, Frodan.
And Dishsoap.
And today is the beginning of the end, actually. I think this is our final episode of the set because right after this, Dishsoap is shipping off to the World Championship, the Tactician's Crown. That's right, 4 championships in a row, and you actually almost won your second regionals. It was really, really close. Dishsoap, talk to me. How's your past week or so with the patch? It seems like you've been crushing it.
Yeah, I mean, it just been kind of crazy. I've been on like the past 2 tournaments is probably like my best string of placements in tournaments yet. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, I don't know. It just felt like everything really clicked for me, and I was playing really well. So hopefully can keep the momentum going into next weekend as well.
Do you feel like this is, I know it's obviously you don't want to jinx yourself going to the World Championship, but do you feel like you're in like peak form? Do you feel like this is some of the best TFT you playing, or it just happens to be the best results? Because that's sometimes separate from your actual playing form.
I don't know. It's so hard to rank yourself in that way. I guess I'll say I guess I'm probably playing the best because I feel like the results
Stats don't lie.
Yeah, the stats don't lie, but it's hard to like reflect on that and like compare it to your past. It's just it's not really something like I can do. I'll just say I'm playing my best right now, but I mean I hope I'm playing my best at least.
Fair enough. Fair enough. And you know what? Honestly, it's pretty good to just live in the moment. Like, who cares? Focus on what's in front of you. So, play your best that you can right now, even if it's not the best ever, and then focus on winning the world championships because title's got you beat for now, but we'll see if you can change that in a week or two. Okay, as you know, 13.7 is out. It was a pretty small patch, focused mainly on buffs and adjusting various minor things, maybe some underplayed units. That doesn't mean that there aren't minor shifts. And I think a lot of the shifts are compounded by the fact that things already were shifting towards the end of last patch as well. As anything with TFT, when you play a patch long enough, even if it feels well established what the meta is, there's always going to be some evolution. So talk to me about some of the changes that you've noticed so far from last patch to this patch, even though it wasn't the biggest of buffs.
The biggest thing is that like the top end of some lines got changed. The Malzahar buff, probably the most significant thing of the patch, makes some of the visionary comps like scale a lot better into late game. Now, that usually hasn't actually been their like weak point. Like the comps have already been pretty strong if you get the Malzahar, but now like maybe you're going second instead of third or first instead of second now. And there's also like this backline Elise change combined with the 4 form swapper change of the previous patch makes that somewhat of a viable line you can get to if you're really, really high rolling, because she does a lot of damage. But the problem is she's usually just like extremely contested unit, and you're probably gonna need to be able to get to that Jace as well. And then after that, you also need to somehow make a frontline when you're playing a frontline unit in the back. So a lot of things have to go right for you to do it, but if you can get her going, she does damage for sure.
Yeah, right now we have Black Widow, the Form Swapper Elise in B tier. And I have to say that the top end of it looks really impressive if you're just judging off of Elise as a unit.
I mean, if you go to the tier list and you get to the board that we have on the tier list, it'll be stronger than like what you would expect out of a B tier comp. But the issue would just be like how consistent, how consistent you can get there, because that is a hard board to make, and it's like if you don't hit the 5 costs, like the replacements aren't really going to be that great either.
Have you seen any variations that try to play Sorcerer and they put like the Sorcerer emblem on Elise, so they have like Elise as your carry alongside LeBlanc in a Sorcerer setup?
Like I actually saw that more when it was like the 8 Sorc thing, and you would just like 8 Sorc blow the board up in 2 seconds with Elise, but I'm sure it'll be played. However, my take on that of Sorcerer backline Elise, it's always just been like you don't really need, like, Sorcerer's has so many potential backline carries already that are fine. It doesn't really make sense to me to go for another backliner when what the comp lacks is frontline 100%. So unless like I don't know. Unless it's like you don't have a LeBlanc and you have like Zoe 1, at least 2, and then they have like a Swain 2 for frontline. Like maybe you would do it then temporarily, but I can't imagine you actually want to end the game on back Elise in that line just because of how really desperate you are for frontline.
There was a game that I was watching in the World Scrims. I've been watching World Scrims all week long, kind of getting a download of the meta to see how things are shift. Pretty interesting. And the European top players like Double 61, Coco, and all of them are trying out Elise backline. There was one game where Double 61 was playing 6 sorcerers, and literally his front line was just Swain and Sion because he was playing backline Elise. And it just looked like really weird because it was like 7 people in the back row plus Swain and Sion. And understandably, it did not go very well. I feel like you run into situations like that very often.
Yeah.
But the Elise was doing a really impressive, like 11,000 damage, 13,000 damage, but he was losing every fight. So it's just one of those things where, yeah, she can do a ton of damage, but it's almost like you just really need that in the front line, even though she's great.
Yeah, it feels like the set was designed in a way that like just like didn't even have form swapper in. And like I feel like the set was just designed like with how the front lines work as like her only being a frontline unit. The boards just don't really make sense with her in the back line, unfortunately. But if you can somehow make it work, she does do damage for sure.
All right, all right. I noticed that one of the upticking compositions that people are also playing is Tristana reroll. I think Tristana has moved from kind of that middle section of reroll comps and sort of have swap place with Zeri as like the 2-cost Rage Blade preferred reroll composition. What exactly happened? I know Zeri did get nerfed, but what exactly is causing Tristana to rise up in stock so much for some top players?
I mean, she's been like the same the whole set, kind of. I think people. One of the bigger things that people might like are kind of discovering how good Ezreal 2 is. So if you can get those both those itemized, you have like a lot of like Ezreal kind of helps with your like AoE damage problem. Tristana's like kind of pure single target. So that helps. Tristana though has like always kind of been okay. The thing is like she's like the rock paper scissors comp, as in she can win some matchups that you feel like you have no right winning because she can shut down a lot of really strong melee boards. Think of like the quick strikers and the ambushers and stuff. She can beat versions of those boards that are like much stronger than you would than like your Tristana board just because of the matchup. But then she'll lose to like weak Sork boards because the Zoe will just like kill you before you can do anything. Um, so it's kind of like a rock paper scissors thing. I feel like with Trist you kind of have to play it from ahead. I've seen a lot of people try, like even at like the pro level, like try to play 5 lost Trist, and I think that's kind of dumb, but I see it happen fairly often.
Oh, it's very
Um,
common now, especially
yeah,
in some of the scrims I'm watching. Maybe that's not going to happen in tournament, but they straight up don't have. They have 0 Triss going to 3-2, and they just roll it down, hoping it works out. And
yeah,
yeah, the jury's out on that one.
I've always legit hated that. I think, but that's just me.
Yeah, I think one player had legitimately like 9 stacks, like 9% attack speed at anomaly. It was
Yeah.
wild. So there's been some fantastic flameouts that I've watched of people trying that.
And the thing is, even like not having a Trist on like the stage 1 is kind of a big deal because you can pretty consistently get 4 kills.
Yeah,
Um,
you can
th-
start off with
th-
5. So to start off to be at 9 at anomaly is like terrible.
yeah.
So,
Yeah, you can start it with 580 really easy. There's like a bunch of like guaranteed setups for that.
mhm.
Um, so yeah, I think it's kind of like a big deal to not start off with it.
Okay. Last time we checked in, you were talking about how Chem Baron might actually just be kind of like sleeper OP, and now I think everyone's figured out that Chem Baron is like fantastic. If you start off with Chem Baron, you can play into reroll Smeech, you can play it for fast 8, you also can just play cash out. Um, and there's a couple of other variations as well. Some people are still trying to play some variations of like visionary reroll. So, do you still feel Chem Baron? Do you still feel that way? Do you still feel Chem Baron is actually like just nutty right
Yeah,
now, and you should never be selling any Smeech, any Rennie, etc.?
I think stage 2 Kimbaran, like not even just 2-1, just stage 2 Kimbaran is instead like the best thing you can do usually. Unless you just have like a turbo win streak tempo spot, like you're probably not going to full sell for Kimbaran, but like anything outside of that is just Like you just play it. The reason it's, I mean, okay, so the thing is on our tier list we have Smeech ranked pretty high, and like Kim Visionary in like B. But like the thing is, if like that guy, if that comp gets going and you actually get like the Rennie 3, the Heimer 2, you get to the level for like the Bowels and the whatever on 9, like it's so insane. It's just like a really really hard comp to pilot, and also the like normal Kim Baron. I believe the stats on Kim Baron are still just god awful.
Yeah, yeah.
And I imagine like okay, so like this is the problem with like this tier list because like, or just the problem with like tier lists in general because it just depends on. I guess it just depends on like the level you are as like as a player because I think at the pro level I think like all 3 of the Kim lines, Ambushers, Visionaries, and Perfected Sulko are like super super S tier, but like the thing is, it averages like above 5 on ladder for a reason. It's somewhat difficult to play. So
It is, and
yeah,
also you're forgetting that on ladder that there's a lot of people who just grief you all the
yeah,
time, whether intentionally or unintentionally too. There's a lot of people who just like are not even trying to grief you. Or
true.
people grief themselves. It's just really hard. So it depends, and I think we've settled on the tier list of understanding this is where the average expected, but also with like a dash in of baseline consistency, with also a consideration of their top end. And so this
Yep.
is kind of where we settle on. But make no mistake, there's always a bunch of asterisks to almost all of these, right? Like we are quick strikers on average the best comp? Probably not, but if you can hit the peak of it, it's extremely high. Um, and so that's kind of and also, we were talking about before, but like is our enforcers and emissary Corky, like are these compositions actually going to be something that you're going to see very commonly in tournaments? Not really. It's almost going to be like as common to see them as some of these other B tier lines. You're like, why is scrap being as played as much as enforcers? And the reality is, it's because players understand the spots that they're supposed to try to go for it versus not. So
Yeah.
that's definitely the challenge of the tier list. Okay, speaking of, I do want to ask, why is Scrap kind of down in the dumps? I know they did get the nerf, but then they buffed Corky. Was that not enough to help Scrap out?
Uh, not really. I mean, it's yeah. Like God, I don't really understand the scrap comp now. I just never see it do well. That's another comp that gets rolled over by Tristana for fun as well. Something to consider, even though like you could like fully outvalue the board. Just the fact that you're playing like you can't get through the sentinels and then she does one shots all the scrap units very slowly. Struggles with like getting your whole board at least as well. Mm.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I see people hit the board, and I'm watching
Yeah,
them like they should be stable, and they're just not. It's really interesting to me. I feel like it's just a composition that I think overall just is not. Maybe the combination of nerfs to Rumble and Echo and the Scrap Shield just a little bit too much. I think.
yeah. The biggest thing is the shield. Like I think I don't remember if it was the last patch or 2 patches ago. Like whenever they nerfed the shield, that's when I felt like it got really mediocre. I think it was something like I think it was like 5 shield off of each component or something, which is very significant.
Yeah, agreed. I think that that's definitely hurt a lot as well. Okay, taking a look at some of the other compositions as well. Mad Chemist technically got buffed. I don't know if you've seen the stats on it. It makes it look kind of reasonable to try to go for it. I do think that Sentinels are very contested this patch, more than the previous patch, because the previous patch, as you guys know, more people were willing to play Watchers because Zeri was more broken. And people are playing Sniper Watchers. That's not really a thing anymore. Twitch is struggling a little bit these days. So it's going to be hard to get those Sentinels. The Mad Chemist data looks promising on ladder. I have not really seen anyone even try it in scrims. So I'm curious, do you think that this significant number buff for Sin should be enough by any chance?
Like maybe for ladder. The thing is this hero augment or like it's so easy to position around. You, like it is actually disturbing how easy it is to position around this, and I doubt people are really punishing it on ladder. But
Okay.
you can make it position in a way where like like you could just isolate like a single unit on the opposite side of the singe, and he'll just spend the like so long just running to one unit, and then like by the time he runs there, runs back into late game fight, since the late game fights are so fast, like you're just gonna kill their board and kill him. I don't know.
But it's
Like
funny. That's the important thing.
yeah, like you just like even if you don't like even if he's like cognizant of or even if your opponent is cognizant of like how you can abuse the Sin's positioning, and they'll like try to swap sides like last second. Yeah, I mean you could just put two shitters in the left and right corner, and then that's probably enough still. But if you can like kind of guess what side they're on, you can just completely shut them down.
Yeah, that's fair. I don't think I've seen any scrims so far. I only see the data's okay on it, but hey, at least maybe it's not completely unpickable and you can get your top four, which is what you really ultimately want with the hero augment.
Yep.
Okay, they buffed Nunu by what looks like it'd be a big number. To most champions, this would be a pretty big number, but yet Nunu still doesn't feel great at all. Why is that? Like, why is Nunu such a mid champ? Not even a mid champ. Why is he just so useless? It feels like outside of his synergies.
I gotta refresh myself with this buff. It was mana buff. Okay, so the main issue with Nudu is that his cast does not like his durability just doesn't last that long. That's like the main thing. Also, I think his base stats are just low because he's meant to gain like since he's a 3 trait unit, he's meant to gain value out of all 3 of his traits, but you very rarely get value out of all 3 of his traits. So I think his base stats are low, and his duration on his damage. Okay, I forgot the word for like the
Durability?
yeah, durability. Yeah, I forgot that word. Okay, sorry. The duration on his durability is just super low. I think. Let me just really quickly compare it to Singe, because Singe's durability is I think like 5 seconds and Nunu's 4 or something, or like 3. Okay, Nunu's 3. It's 4 and 3, but like a full second for a cast like that is like kind of crazy impactful. Yeah, I don't know. Like he's pretty tanky for those 3 seconds, but it's just 3 seconds.
Okay.
And his base stats are low, like as well. So.
Yep, fair enough. I've also seen some people rate build different lower and lower. Like I know that like White Voice tier list is putting build different lower and lower. Is there any reason for that, or is that just do you think their personal preference?
Oh, I mean, if you ever look at someone's someone's personal tier list of BD, it comes up so infrequently that if it's ranked high, it probably means like the past 1 or 2 times they did well with it, and if it's ranked low, it probably means they went like spot 2 with it. And like this is not false for ours either, to be fair.
Sure.
I don't know. I've had some crazy like win streaks with BD because I think like a lot of the 3-cost 1-stars like just don't lose when you have BD on like stage 2 and stage 3. Like they're just kind of overtuned. But then you get to stage 4 and 5, and then you lose every round, and you go 3rd or 4th, even though you win streak to wolves. And then you kind of feel like, why would I even do this?
Right.
In the first place.
Hey, 3rd and 4th is not bad. I'll take 3rd and 4th all day.
Yeah, but when you're winning the whole game, it doesn't feel great going out after you lose it like every single round. I don't know. I don't know. It's alright if you can make it to the 5 costs, but the problem is you kind of can't do that because you're not strong enough stage 4 to like go fast 9 ever, and your board's super expensive because you want to play a bunch of 4 costs as well. So it's just not really feasible to play around the 5 costs. I don't know. I kind of am sick of this augment even existing. I think it's like been solved forever and it's extremely boring, but that's just me.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I do think I think it's still cool for the first time for people who still have never played it before, because there are a lot of people who do. It's still one of the. I think it's a really nice, cool, clever design augment. But yeah, I wouldn't mind it to take it away for a little bit just to bring it back later on.
I mean, I'm down if it was like reworked into something that I don't even know. Never mind.
Just like a different buff, like instead of HP.
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, they could just do it, but change the numbers instead of attack speed and HP, maybe armor and MR or something, and maybe just play frontline with no traits. That'd be interesting. Either way, there's stuff that they could do, so we'll figure it out. Either way, I think that covers most of the metashes, believe it or not. We actually talked about pretty much the entire patch. They made some buffs to augments. I don't know if any of them are particularly crazy here. Like Glass Cannon getting buffed a few percent. That's nice. I mean, it's just nice to get.
I mean these look extremely fake.
Yeah, backup getting more attack speed.
I mean, I've seen like before the buff. I saw double 61 click Glorious Evolution before.
Yeah, how did that go?
I mean, he won, but I think he like was already winning the game anyways.
Got it. Well, it does feel like 4 is way easier than 6 on a roll down. So maybe we'll see Glorious Evolution. I have seen people proc the Warwick augment more often, what you really are.
Yeah.
And that seemed like pretty decent. Either way, I think it turned into a situation where I should never click this to, hey, maybe I can click this. But whether or not that's worth a prismatic of power, I think we're still figuring out. All right. So that closes our meta section. We'll probably have more updates, maybe even as things lead up to the World Championship, but definitely check out our tier list there. Our second segment will be Fact or Fraud. All right, Fact or Fraud. This is going to be an anomalies edition because, I just figured we can theme it every single time. So this is going to be some questions or statements that I'm going to be throwing out about anomalies. And I asked Dishsoap, is that fact or is that fraud? Here's the first one. If you are lacking anti-heal, it's worth taking an anomaly, and I use the example here, Fireball, which is if you spend 60 mana, you cast like a damage, and also anti-heal, it wounds and burns. To secure the anti-heal if you don't have a component for it. Is that fact or fraud, Dishsoap?
Like, kind of both. Like,
Yeah?
if you don't have anti-heal, getting anti-heal is good, but the thing is, this Fireball augment Fireball anomaly is so trash. Like, it's worthless, man. I've taken it enough to never want to take it again. I don't think it's clickable.
Okay, what about the other burn ones? The couple like Laser Eyes is one of them, for example.
I think it's just Laser Eyes, and I think Laser Eyes is fine. You could take Laser Eyes; it's good when you want a melee carry. I think it's always been takeable in Echo, and it's pretty good on Akali as well. I had a this was like in scripts a while ago, but I had a Radiant Titans, a Radiant BT, Akali 3 with Laser Eyes. That shit went kind of hard. But
yeah, I can do you one better. That sounds great. I can do you one better. I think I told you about this actually. I one time put Laser Eyes on Mad Chemist. And I had him walk to the back line, and any stationary backline carry he would just walk to, and he would turn around and one-shot them. It was very, very funny. I ended up getting a second that game, but also because I happened to be like 3 players were playing Twitch, and they just never move him off the experiment X. And so every time I would just put Singe in the right side, and he would walk over and basically gas down the Twitch in like 2 seconds. Super funny. But yeah, that was the one time I took Laser Eyes, and that was a tuber for sure.
I've clicked Laser Eyes a few times, and I've never been sad about it. Every single time I've clicked Fireball, I've like thought it was trash, like every single time. So
okay. So maybe on Laser Eyes, but no on Fireball is the answer there.
Okay, but the thing is, like, don't take Laser Eyes on like some generic tank trash. Like, you need a Giga Melee AP carry, which is literally just Akali 3 or Echo 2. So,
what about like a Mord 2 that's juiced, or like a Mord that you're gonna upgrade?
Yeah, sure, whatever. Yeah, I mean, honestly, you could probably do Mord.
Okay, cool. All right, statement number 2. After the buff to 50% attack speed, Repulsor is a strong anomaly. People are putting in like A tier plus for anybody who's doing anomaly tier lists. Fact or fraud?
I mean, it's fine. I think it's takeable. I wouldn't call it strong though. That's okay. If you have an attack speed user, and you can take it a lot of the time. I never really felt like it was like strong though. I think that's pushing it. I would put it in like B plus, not A.
Okay, what's another B plus or anomaly rather that we can help draw like a baseline of understanding?
Oh, like the Liam and Oscar, the 2 wolves. Like if you're playing the one someone's 2 wolves. I call it
familiar.
I call him Lima and Oscar because I usually only take that one on Corky. And it's
Lima and Oscar.
Yeah, because he goes Lima, Oscar, Lima.
But, I see.
I mean, yeah, that one to me is like another B that you take for like 80 units, and the Repulsor is like a B that you take for attack speed. Units on attack speed, like your Twitch, your Zoe, your LeBlanc, your whatever exists. Silco, I don't know.
Okay, so you're fraud on this one. You're like no on this one. It's like it's good, it's okay, but not that strong.
I mean, I'm not exactly, because the thing is, like, I feel like perception around this like might be that it's unclickable because it's been very uncommon to take this the whole set. Like I haven't clicked it until I got buffed, so people might not know it exists. So I don't think it's like fraudulent for that, but I don't think it's broken or anything.
Okay, fair enough. Statement number 3. Power up and cultivating magic. These are the anomalies that say every 10,000 you'll get extra AD/AP, and it gives you a base starting amount. Are only anomalies for solo hyper carries, never for any setup with a duo carry. Is that fact or fraud?
Yeah, pretty much. Um, the thing is, like, I think these two are just bad because I think the numbers of them are just too low. So it's like, I do agree that it's like a solo carry only thing. The thing is, like, for AP comps, that doesn't really exist. Like, I'm trying to think about like an AP unit that does all of the damage for your comp, and like I literally cannot think of anything. However, power up, like, if you play like Zeri solo carry, like no 4 sniper, like just Zeri plus frontline, if you can somehow make that work, Zeri will do all the damage in your comp, and she scales pretty well with AD. I've taken that and it's done, like, I've gotten up to like 90 AD with her
Oh,
from the
pretty good.
anomaly. But like if you have like a Twitch duo carry, you're not going to get nearly that high. And then also just like the other comps, like, I mean, like maybe on Triss, but then usually like your Ezreal does like steals a bunch of the damage. So it's like, I don't know. I think the numbers on this one are just kind of low though.
If you look at how long it might take to the other anomalies, because part of it is the comparison to another one, is after about 4 or 5 rounds, you might get it to attack expert or power up.
Yeah,
And then you're
yeah.
like, well, these were like the 4 rounds that decided my placement range. Like if I didn't win or lose these 2 or 3, 4 fights, I'd actually be playing for a top 3 instead. Now I'm playing for like a 6. So that's where it's always awkward, I think, in my
Yeah,
opinion.
it's like it's probably as bad as Headhunter, but like people probably don't think it's as bad as Headhunter because like I feel like the fantasy of getting a bunch of like AD is stronger than the fantasy of getting a bunch of attack speed.
Yeah, that's
So
true. Especially
like
because it's
you just need
infinite
to.
scaling. You're just like, oh, like what if I just
Yeah.
keep doing 20,000 damage a fight? That's broken.
Yeah, but like the thing is, it's not even like you can only do as much damage as the enemy team has health. So like it actually depends on what comps the enemies are playing as well.
That is true.
Uh, so like it goes a lot better if they're playing like healing based or like HP based lines.
By the way, to answer your previous question, you asked like, can you think of any AP comps where you would take cultivating magic? Because is there any AP solo carry? The only one that I've ever seen it taken was on Crimson Pact Vlad, where you kind of play him
Oh,
because you
yeah,
couldn't
yeah.
find LeBlanc. So that was like one. And you know, they play like Jewel Gauntlet instead of Archangels, for example, and they just had like tons of AP that way. I think that worked out all right.
I can see that. He does like all the damage for that comp basically.
All right, our last one. This one's the one that chat talks about a lot, but voracious appetite is a bait anomaly that will cost you placements more often than not. It's the one where you bite and trade HP for, or you trade your HP to buff your carries. I'm guessing it's the carries HP and damage amp, and you can do that as much as you want. Just so we're kind of this. We had this topic come up in set 12 when you could bite with Briar. What do we think about set 13 voracious appetite?
So the thing is, it's like yeah, it is a bait, but like it's only a bait if you don't know if you can actually win out. And that requires a lot of game sense and knowledge and repetition and stuff. Like you might think that this thing will allow you to win out, but it doesn't really. Like you're probably gonna be losing to the same high rolls that you would otherwise. It's not really gonna help you like punch through a Ken Baron cash out or anything. So if that's something that's in the lobby, like probably don't take this. But if you're in a really, really far from ahead spot, there's no like crazy vertical or cash out or whatever nonsense going on in the lobby. I think this can easily secure you a first. I've seen it do very well on like the Nocturne, like range Nocturne. I've seen it go pretty hard on like Smeech. If you've like already secured the cash out and like you think you're just gonna win out, um, like losing the HP doesn't really matter because you're just gonna win anyways. I don't even think that. Okay, the thing is, you're probably not gonna get offered this if you're low HP. After cash out, so you probably take this from like win streak Smeech. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I think it's good, but I think the amount of spots that you actually get to take this are somewhat low because there's not actually that many times where you're at anomaly and you're just like, oh yeah, I'm winning out. And I think if you're ever in a spot where you don't think you're winning out, you don't take this. So I guess it's a
Okay.
bait in that sense.
That's good to know. That's good to know. And also, of course, I was just saying it right before it, but it's not good on all kinds of carries as well because not every carry wants HP and damage jam specifically. So just keep that in mind, especially because if the carry already has a lot of damage jam, for example, probably not going to be that useful. And of course, if they're not like a melee carry or getting themselves like the HP is not relevant. So
I
keep that in
look. You
mind.
want to elaborate on this more because the thing is, like this concept also applies to radiant items, and I think a lot of people get this confused. Is that
Okay.
effects like this that are like extremely strong power power spikes for one particular unit are really really only going to be good on like the super turbo 1v9 carries, and typically the way Riot balances the game is that those are like melees, um because they balance the game in a sense that like melees do a decent amount of more damage, but the thing is like they just die because they're melee. So the thing is, if you can actually get like because of that, radiant items and anomalies are disproportionately stronger on melee carries in specific. Um, so
Hmm.
yeah,
Cool.
it's basically like if you just look at the stats, like look at every single, and it also like kind of applies to like 4 cost versus like 3 cost, for example. Like if you're playing Vi, like Vi's a really good melee carry, for example, like 2-star Vi, but she's not really a 1v9 ever compared to like a Smeech, for example, because at the tempo you can play her and she's balanced around like having a bunch of duo carries and stuff. And for reroll melee to be ever viable at all, they kind of have to be able to 1v9. So if you look at rating item stats at all, it across the board they're just terrible. Unless you're like doing the prismatic. The prismatic augment makes the stats a little weird. The quality over quantity. So like the only time radiants look good is quality over quantity or melees. If you're just looking at backline radiants at all, they're all just trash. Tank ones as well. And that kind of applies to anomaly in some sense. But
Interesting.
I
I
think
wish
this
they
is
could like remove quality or quantity from the stats for rating items.
yeah.
Helps us understand a little bit better.
And this is why Refractor is like a pretty good pick if you're playing like Smeech or like a Kali or Nocturne or something, but it's like terrible if you're doing like Vi. It's kind of or like a backline Corki or whatever. I think it's something that even like top players don't understand somehow. Like
Interesting.
like I'm not trying to like name names, but I just see people look at like open up an anvil, like they take radiant relics for whatever reason. They see a radiant and they're let's just look at the best holders, and then they like see like Corki has like negative 0.01 delta. But like the thing is like you shouldn't even be taking radiant in the first place because radiants are just like so bad in these units. But
Fascinating.
yeah,
This is the first time I've heard of that concept or parts of this concept. I think there's elements of it that I already knew. Like, for example, these melee units are much better with it. But I think when you frame it that way, that's fascinating.
it also kind of applies to some of the reroll backliners, like Tristana Zeri, like anything where like the comp is balanced around one unit being able to do like 80% of the output, for example, is where like the singular power increases are going to be the most viable. Comps that are balanced around multiple outputs are like radiants are never going to be good, which is basically every single 4 cost comp.
You're right. Because in my mind, I had rationalized it as that the more I'm dependent on this unit being the star of the comp, like solo carrying or 1v9 or just literally having to be like the hero of everything, the more important like stacking rating is on it. But it's interesting because I think that's what you're saying, but as a fraction of like the whole bigger story. So I think that's a really interesting piece because I learned something as well.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. That's really good stuff. And honestly, that's probably the golden nugget of the day for me. Let's go ahead and wrap it up and hop on over to the pop quiz, shall we? All right, so pop quiz. So last week you cleared, or last time you did really good job. So you're batting pretty well, way above 50% now. So let's go ahead and make this one I think it's like a notch up in difficulty, but the theme for this pop quiz, I'm really big into themes now, is win percentage because we're trying to put out good juju for Dishsoap for winning at Worlds. So we're gonna ask questions about X has the highest win rate or things like that. Okay.
Okay.
Ready?
Sure. I haven't looked at any of this, so like beforehand.
All right. So let's start off nice and easy. This one is pretty simple. Which one cost has the highest win rate in overall stats right now?
Interesting. All right.
Like in just as the raw stats. What if you filter by win percentage? What one cost is doing the best right now?
Gotta just check the one cost real quick. Oh, just singed, right? Just Kimbaron? I think. I mean, it must be singed. It must be. Final answer, singed.
All right, final answer, Singe. The answer is Draven. Draven at a few percentage higher. Singe is pretty high up there, but Draven's really high up there, and I think it's because you're either playing Draven in the good family setups or the Conquerors. So
or 8-Pit Fighter.
Or 8-Pit Fighter. That's correct. Okay,
that does make sense.
No worries. This one is another one cost question, but it's gonna go the extreme. Which one cost 4-star? Like a 4-star one cost has the highest win rates overall. It actually has the highest stats overall. What's the best 4-star one cost?
Oh, it's
on Dispatch, obviously, and
yeah.
data.
Jeez. And this one, I have no clue. I feel like it's just random.
Well, the result is actually staggeringly better than everything else, which I think is interesting.
I mean, Morgana 4-star like used to have crazy stats. And that was like before Morgana was even like good. Like that was when Morgana was you didn't even reroll her, and she was like the highest. Like she was the highest placement. I don't remember the win rates. I like the thing is, like this is basically just worth the wait.
Is it just worth the wait?
Wait, what?
Is it just worth the wait?
I mean, it's like Ultimate Hero as well, but
is it just worth the wait? Ultimate Hero?
Does this doesn't count Moonlight? Because Moonlight shows up as 1-star on the match history.
Oh, does it? Okay, well, I didn't know. I mean, I thought it did factor it in. Okay, never mind.
Okay, the way you're saying that is like you make me think it's like Zyra or Powder, because those are the two Moonlight ones. But the thing is, whatever, man. I'll just say Zyra. I think you gave me a hit, Loki.
Oh, okay. Zyra is actually really close. It's Powder. It's Powder.
All right.
Powder's stats are actually crazy. It's like a 36% win rate or something like that.
That might be the Easter egg, because the Easter egg does change the match history.
Oh, you're
and
right.
I did know that, so it is my fault for not answering.
Oh, that's right. I forget the family. Yeah. I've actually never triggered it, but it starts everything up by 1.
And the thing is, it's technically bugged. It's not supposed to do this, but no one cares because it's supposed to enter win the game anyways. It actually like procs multiple times. So
what the heck?
Like if you win one round, it like starts everything up, and then it starts everything up like permanently. And then it keeps doing it.
Wait, so that win rate's kind of low, 36%. That's wild.
Yeah, but I mean sometimes it's also like half the time it's you get it from it was like the family trade augment. Like welcome to the playground or something, and after you get 3-star all the other families, it'll start like farming you powders.
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
But like I'm pretty sure like that's like if you actually make it a powder 4, like you're probably not gonna win with that augment. But
got it. In that case, I filtered that part out, and you're correct. Zyra is actually the best then. But that actually just check out though, because Zyra is quite good, especially with the Greater Moonlight. Okay, nicely done. All right, this one is a 50-50. I like a good 50-50. What has the higher win percentage right now? 10 Rebel or 9 Conqueror?
Oh, it's for sure non-Conqueror. It's for sure non-Conqueror. Lock it in.
Okay, you're correct, but it's actually really close.
Okay.
Only by less than 1%, but it's actually higher, and I think that would shock some people.
I mean, I'm only saying that because I beat 10 Rebel in regionals.
Oh, with 9 Conqueror?
I beat it with like 8-Pit Fighter.
Oh, okay. You think 10 Rebel's overrated then?
Oh no! My board, he had full 1-star carries with like he has 2-star allowed, but he had a full 1-star board basically.
I saw this was against Bosso skills.
Yeah. And then I rolled Blue Flame, which is even like I don't even think the knockout punch would have even worked, because I think it would have just gotten like restunned again after it did the second punch and died. But the Blue Flame, it procs through the CC, so I was able to like Blue Flame as a Lowy through like multiple Rebel stuns and scam them that that was the only. I would think that was the only Civica roll I could have gotten to win that. Like, I don't think normal Flame. I don't think knockout punch would have done it. But I mean, hey, it is what it is.
Yeah. 9 Conquer, 85.6%. 10 Rebel, 85%. I thought that was really interesting. Okay. Here we go. Next question. What is currently the highest win rate artifact? It's actually a tie between two of these. So I'll accept either answer.
I don't know. Wow. I mean, I never look at the win rates for anything.
Nor are they that usually important, but it's fun for quizzing.
Yeah, for sure. I think Manazane goes kind of crazy if you could actually make it to capped boards. Problem is it's just mid on the mid boards. I mean, it's not mid. It's always good. It's just never like it's not gonna make a mid board insane. Like for example, like Silco, if you actually have the full Dominator setup, the Manazane goes extremely hard. So I'm gonna. You said top two.
Yeah, there's basically it's a
All right.
two-way horse between these two items, and then the third is Gat. So
All right. I'm gonna go Manazane and Prowler's Claw.
those are two close ones. They're like of the top 6 or so. The answer is Zonia's or Rapid Fire Cannon. Either of them are basically at 20% win rate, and then the next highest are like 18. So
Yeah, Donnie's makes sense. It's like kind of broken on board, but
it makes sense. And then RFC is like the Nocturne thing. So okay, last question. This one probably might be the most applicable one to you in the coming weekend. We'll see. When you filter out Chem Baron, I actually did filter out for some of these other stats. Which 3-star 4 cost has the highest win rates? So you still can play Silco 3, but I filtered out the Chem Baron. I just wanted, so it still could be. But because Silco blew everything away at that when you factor in Chem Baron.
I'm gonna be honest, I have no clue. I mean, I know it's not Vi. I also don't think it's Mundo. I just like 3-star 4 costs are just so rare, so rare. I don't even know what I don't even remember seeing a 4-star Bessa ever. I mean, I probably have, but I don't know. Is it just like Elise? Because like if you're 3-star, like Elise, your opponent's not playing Elise or something. Yeah, but no, there's no way it's actually Elise though. There's no way it's actually Elise. Okay. I mean, I haven't 3-star Corky before. That guy's kind of a demon, but I don't know if he's like highest win rate demon. I'm gonna assume it's not any of the melees. Okay, if it's not any of the melees, and I don't think it's any of the tanks, although it probably could be. Oh god. I mean, I see people on YouTube Shorts, like a 3-star Garen on YouTube Shorts goes kind of hard, like the IE Hodge Garen 3.
Oh, I've seen that. Yeah.
But I probably shouldn't be using YouTube Shorts for this. I mean, I don't know. I've just never seen enough of these in game. I'll go Elise because like your opponent, like it's impossible not to win if your opponent's not playing Elise or something. Yeah.
Got it. Not a bad guess. You were kind of dancing around it, but the best is Twitch. Twitch is the best 3-star 4 cost.
Fascinating.
And then, well, I meant dancing around it as in like you were thinking about like was it Vi, for example? She's really high up there. And Silco actually is still the second best, even if you take out Chem Baron. So yeah, it goes Twitch, Silco, then Zoe/Vi. All right. Not bad, Dishsoap, but you know, these aren't the really important win percentage stuff. Of course, we'll trust you to figure out the proper win percentage come Worlds time. That does bring us to our main topic for today, which is stats related, which is I want to revisit how to actually climb using stats as a tool for us. So for this topic for today, first thing I want to do is just recap some of the questions we asked last time, just for people. And in case we have changed our opinions on it, or we have more updated information. So the first thing that we should do is, well, open up a stats page. Give me a sec here real quick. As you can see, this was the forecast I was looking at. But the first thing I'll ask here, Dishsoap, is what are some important stats to look at? Let's say that let's even like simplify this down. Let's go to the basic, or we can click any of these tools. I'm on tactics.tools or on meta TFT. You prefer using tactics.tools. What are some important stats that I want to look at? I want to get better at stats.
I mean, it kind of depends on the scenario you're looking at. Are you trying to like figure out what the meta is on like the first day of the patch? Are you like trying to figure out what comp you should play, or trying to figure out like what variation you should play, or trying to figure out like what items you want? I guess you like the answer is you can use it for all of those things. Like I very commonly open this page up first day of the patch just to see how stuff's shaken out. I'll
Sure,
look at
let's start with that.
yeah, I'll look at the first thing I do, which is really weird, is I look at the I go to the units page and I just look at the unit AVP. The thing is, I don't think this is gonna work for everyone because you kind of have to understand like if like for example like scroll down a bit. I usually don't look at the 5 costs. That's just fake news. But you kind of have to understand that. I mean, okay, like the thing is like it's the set's too balanced now. Earlier on,
we can go to an earlier patch.
yeah,
Can we go to an earlier patch?
yeah, sure.
13.1?
Maybe 13.2.
Okay. Because, I mean, the C patch, yeah, all right, but 13.2.
All right. So it's like the first thing that should immediately jump out at you is that there's a 1 cost here in all of the higher cost units.
Mm-hmm.
So just with the game, with how TFT works, you get like the higher cost units show up the longer the game goes on, and the longer the game goes on, the higher your average placement is. So if the AVP of the units don't really follow the 5 into 4 into 3 into 2 into 1 kind of range, you know something is up. So like if you see a 1 cost here ever have an average placement close or above a 5 cost,
averaging the same as 5 costs, man. I'm looking at this.
You need to investigate it. It usually just means that either a reroll line is broken, and that in this case, yeah, like yes, family reroll was broken on this patch. But it could also mean that like a specific trait could be broken. Trying to think of an example of that. I'm kind of
so there's like verticals in the past where you play some 1 cost that were just so good that the 1 cost stats looked amazing as well.
Yeah. So like I don't know, like I think like Kenbear on one of these patches was extremely broken, and you could like see like singed up here, for example. But like this is just like a preliminary thing I do, and then like I'll take this and then I'll look into I'll look into like outliers, and then I'll, for example, like if I didn't know that Violet reroll was good, I would look to see like, oh, why is Violet doing good? Is it because like Pit Fighter's broken? Is it because Family's being broken? And then you check and see like, oh yeah, it's because Family's doing broken. And you can kind of do that for like all of the outliers mainly. You can also check comp stats on like somewhere like Meta TFT, and I think Tactics Tools does it as well. But the thing is like, I feel like the way they determine what a comp is a little misleading sometimes.
You're talking about this tab, right? Like
Yeah,
the top
yeah.
comps, and you're looking and you're like, ooh, this is fancy. Pit Fighter. Oops. Sorry. Oh, this is fancy. Pit Fighter Violet. 4.04.
Yeah, but then the thing is, it's like the comp is good, but like, are they like what does it mean to be a Pit Fighter? Like, are they like filtering out like like they're probably not filtering in games of Family where like you don't get to 6 Pit Fighter or 4 Pit Fighter or whatever, and then it's gonna be a lot worse. So I feel like it doesn't, like these comp sheets don't do any of the
Okay, but then when you look at these things like items, people like look at this like positive and negative delta, this kind of transitions. What are some of the important like numbers that you think actually are worth evaluating when you're looking at like, okay, what are the best items, or what are the best variants to play when I'm looking at, you know, this with the emblem versus not?
For items specifically, I think you would do this on Basic Explorer. So let's go there because I don't really look at like overalls like that. What you would want to do is you first like look at a unit. So I guess we're looking at Violet, so we'll look at Violet. And then you go to this items tab. So this tab will show you the placement of particular items on Violet. And then there's games, which basically equals play rate. It's how many times people are building the item on her. There's the average placement, which is literally just what you average when you put the item on her. And then there's delta, which is the difference between her normal average placement and the average placement of the when you put the item on her, or something like that.
Yeah, I basically say the comparison of having a player on the court versus off the court. If you're a basketball fan, it'd be like the Lakers. What is their point score differential when LeBron is on or off, for the most part?
So typically, I end up looking immediately. I filter by delta. It's also a good practice to click the funnel on the top right to like look at craftable only or like ore item, like the thing. Yeah, looking at like craftable or an item only, because
emblems are really situational and fake. You can also use sample size as well. That kind of
yeah.
helps give you a thing. Because actually, that's another big question. What is a relevant sample size here that you feel like is justifiable to use?
Usually like 1K for like a somewhat developed patch, but like early on the patch, you could do like 300.
Okay, let's do
Um,
300 because we're on pretty early in the patch.
yeah. So then after you get this, now is the part where you have to like understand the context of the stuff. So let's. I don't really want to go into artifacts right now, so we could just do like only craftable. Um, so we have to understand the context of the. Oh, we probably should also. There's another filter you have to do. Just violet can be a bit misleading sometimes because like if you just put violet in, she can sometimes show up in this overall data as like trait bot for like pit fighter, for example.
That's
So
correct.
if we put her at like star level 3, for example, and add like I don't know, like I guess powder because
Family member, yeah, powder.
powder. Um, like this should basically only be family. And then now like if you do this on Advanced Explorer, it gets a bit easier. But on Basic Explorer now it's showing like powder and violet items, so you just put violet in the search bar. It should only like in the under the items.
Oh yeah. Sorry.
Just put violet, and then it should only show you violet items. So now this is basically what we want to look at for like her best items now. So immediately off,
gloves.
immediately off the bat, this is extremely misleading, and this is like the really hard part with stats because you have to like you have to like match it with your in-game experiences and common sense. So it has like Ginsu as its best item. That's basically just anger issues. It just shows you anger issues go with it. If you investigate further, if you look at the Ginsu stats, if it's only going to be good if you pair it with like 2 more Ginsus. The average is probably going to be really bad if you don't.
Right, and this is something that you can see on the advanced board just to demonstrate for you. But
yeah.
Keep going. I'm listening.
So and then you have like a bunch of other like really situational items, and it's not that those items are actually BIS on Violet. It usually just means that it's items that you're getting for her on late game carousels, and like that's gonna make the average placement a lot better, which is a really hard thing to go past in the stats. So what you have to do that is you don't really look at individual items specifically. You have to look at item combos and full builds because that is going to knock out a lot of the bias because it's going to look at specific builds people go for and what items combo well with each other.
You're talking about this tab builds.
And not necessarily. You can just look at like 2 item combos, and that's like usually enough.
Oh, okay.
In like the basic Explorer.
So let's already comment on like Bloodthirster on her, right?
Oh, but I don't think the Bloodthirster is like good on her. So like that's.
Well, I'm just putting an example that's like
Yeah.
known to be on Violet, but you're talking about like now this is another combo. So and this is what you're kind of referring to.
So typically with stuff like this, unless like you have made these items yourselves and are comfortable with it, I would only start building items like because of the carousel bias and like the low sample size stuff. I would only like make what's the best way to put it? Like if you're actually trying to decide what to build, I wouldn't make like IE or Guardbreaker here, even though they have way better averages in Delta. I would look to make Quicksilver immediately because that is a much larger sample size, much larger play rate, and it has very good stats. I guess like maybe play rate is a better.
Well, it's a combination of both.
Yeah.
I think play rate. I think the basic level 1 is use Delta to help sort what is good. But if you want to continue to level up your stats game, I think you have to factor in play rate. Play rate is just basically how correct accuracy wise you think this is. This is like the initial guess, and then this is like how confident they are in it. Higher play rate is better, and that's why I think sample size matters. So if we did the 1K right and in a developed patch, you pretty much get all the answers you possibly could want. And I think, like, for example, a lot of people, I have seen this a lot of times. People would slam Bloodthirster and Hand of Justice, and you kind of recognize that this is actually not a good combo at all, kind of indicating that you don't really need more than one Omnivamp item on Violet whatsoever if you have this Bloodthirster already on it.
Oh, I don't think you did any. I think your craftable abyss is like QSS Sterix Titans.
Sure,
And like,
sure, but I'm
yeah.
choosing. You're
Okay,
talking about this
okay.
specific instance. We're trying
Okay,
to
sorry.
use them as evergreen
Sorry.
to
I
help you
just
understand. But yes, you're entirely correct as well because Pitfight already has Omni Vent built in. One of the most common things that you ever ask is, "How come you didn't build healing for your Violet?" So common to hear that question all the time. But you're not wrong. You're not wrong. So okay, we could do it your way. Let's do it your way. Quicksilver is one of her best items.
yeah.
And then you would look and you would even see this in the other way. This is why exploring the data is good too, because you might be working from a false premise. We put Bloodthirster because that's like a very commonly built item on her, but you're actually looking and it's like, her other better items are just like not even including it. There you go. You increase a little bit more filters. Like, wow, that's another item you can play, Edge of Night, which
Yep.
is also worth considering. So there you go. Okay, so I think that's a good intro to where
But
we stopped. I think this is kind of where we stopped last
yeah.
time. So I kind of want to
The thing is,
follow up. What's up?
even like God, I actually could not stand watching some like pro players on stream look at this because like, they're like, no one understands stats, man. It actually tilts me. Like they don't understand that like they're just looking at like late game carousels sample bias, and then I just watch streamers like immediately go click the delta column and be like, oh yeah, Rudon's is bis on Corky because like it had like good
Got
average
it.
placement for that whatever one patch like lowest play rate. Let's just not do any actual thinking.
Sure, got it. I mean,
Like,
actually, you're wrong. Bis is not Runan's Corky. It's Edgenite Corky.
yeah, I don't remember the specific
No, I
example,
know
but
what you mean.
it
I'm
was
memeing as
yeah
well.
it was basically to the tune of this, and like I see that fairly often from a lot of pro players. So maybe this doesn't matter, but I do think the sample matters more than other people say.
Yeah. Okay. Got it. Got it. So I wanna learn a composition dish soap. Let's
Mm.
dive in a little bit deeper. How do you dive in and learn that Bis, like, so using the Violet for example, how do you dive in and learn that you're not getting tricked by the stats and you actually are working on the good premise of what discovering Bis is? Because I think if you went going back to the Violet, we're just gonna go ahead and type Violet in here. Like Bloodthirster's play rate is through the roof, right? That's why I clicked it right there, and it still looked negative in the delta. So we're like going off of that, but you said Bis doesn't include that. So how am I supposed to figure that out?
Oh, I mean, I heard this. Okay, so the thing is, I was for the longest time under the same assumption, and then I just assumed that the stats on it weren't that great for like other weird reasons. But the thing is, like I just got, I think it was Greya, but like he was like just copying some Korean builds. Uh, he basically came out and said that Trubis was what I just told you. And then other people kind of caught on to that, and then actually built it and tested it in their games, and then felt that it was pretty good as well.
Okay, so it's
So
not a stats thing then.
I mean, it's like he came to that conclusion through stats. Like he saw it from like I think Korean players were like hard forcing it, and then he looked at the stats and said like, oh yeah, this is true Bis now. And then we and then like other players like kind of caught on, but like they still wanted to test it as well because it doesn't really make any sense that like intuitively that you can get away with just Pit Fighter as your healing, but you definitely can.
Okay, okay. How about let's
It's
use
more of a
another
okay,
example then,
okay.
because we're kind of tunneling down. And to be fair, there are some people who need to hear this because there are people who watch and let's say they're around masters, grandmasters, they want to climb. That is how granular you need to get to excel at that level. Otherwise, you're going to be behind people who just think Bloodthirster Titans is just Bis on Violet. That is the way you have to actually analyze in order to climb to Challenger. For people who are kind of like a little bit lower than that, let's start it with a clean slate and let's go with a pretty common carry like Zoe. Uh, so Zoe is a carry. So how am I supposed to look at this and start understanding what is best in slot Zoe? And how am I supposed to be choosing if it's a Rage Blade versus Shojin? Is it Jewel Gauntlet? Or is it like, do I play this Nashers? Am I supposed to put AP on her?
So Zoe is a case where her board is quite different, based on like or like her items, her best in slot items are usually a little bit different based on the type of board you're playing. Whereas I think the items when you're playing Seven Rebel are different from like Sorks, and even if you're playing Sorks, sometimes you don't even play Rebel at all. And then I think that kind of changes it as well. Like for example, I would never build Rage Blade on her unless I had 3 Rebel in, at least. So like that kind of plays into it. And the thing is like the Shojin stats, like Shojin is a good item on Zoe, but the stats on it are bad because it means you likely don't have Shojin on Jinx if you play Rebel. So like you have to be mindful of that. So like the first thing you do here is you have to figure out what version you're playing. I don't think you should be approaching the game in a way that you be like, oh yeah, I have Zoe. What's the best way to play Zoe? And then I'll just make my board randomly to play around the Zoe. I think you should be like, oh, I'm playing Sorks here. Zoe is a carry for Sorks. What is the best way to build Zoe and Sorks? Or
that's a good way. So first thing is add context. Don't just put the unit in. So in this case, let's go 7 Rebel Zoe.
Yep.
And lo and behold, you start getting much more specific data. So we're getting closer. So it's definitely like not Shojin if you're playing the Rebel Zoe because you would prefer something like Rage Blade based off of this delta.
Okay, this is like low-key a bad example because the thing is, the only reason Shojin has bad delta is because
you didn't hit Jinx.
It's because you either didn't hit Jinx or you like didn't move the Shojin off of the Zoe to the Jinx. If you actually have 2 Shojins, one on Zoe, one on Jinx, it actually has good stats. But that's just a quirk of just Shojin on Jinx being like that important that you would just immediately remove her off of Zoe 2 to put it on Jinx 1.
Fair enough, but I think it still drives the point. This one keeps adding contextual stuff to help you understand because he doesn't want to be wrong, right? He doesn't want to like let you know. It's not like Shojin, and I've played Shojin plenty of times on Zoe and Rebel.
Yeah, Shojin's completely fine. Like this is like a one like very notable.
All right, how about we go the other way? Let's go 6 Sorcerer. 6 Sorcerer should help illuminate a little bit more what we're talking about. It goes the opposite direction. It flip-flops. Rage Blade on Zoe and Sorcerer is not as good as just playing Shojin, right? If you're just evaluating off the relative delta to each other. And then you can just also notice that there are some other really strong items you can play onto it, but the play rate indicates that Shojin is very key to her identity because it's still a very important item with with good performance. When I say positive, it's confusing in terms of in terms of delta. And so you would play Shojin with some of these other items, and Zoe is very good with it compared to Rebel. So this is like one way you can evaluate it. The first tip I would say is add more context to your stats. Don't just pick up Zoe. And even this is not complete, right? Dishsoap also just painted you a couple scenarios when you're playing Rebels. If you have Jinx versus not Jinx, if you have Shojin versus 2 Shojins, and this also applies to a bunch of other stuff. Which is why it kind of goes down to: do you want to use an advanced filter? And this is where it kind of gets kind of tricky because, first of all, we're using a different website. This is not even our website, TFT Academy. If you want to use a free explorer that gives you a lot of options, you could use Meta TFT. And Meta TFT gives you the ability to actually add and remove things. So you can add in Zoe, for example. And then what you can do is you can you could type in Jinx. But if you click this button, you actually exclude Jinx of what happens when you play Zoe with no Jinx and you play 7 Rebels. And it looks really bad. But the whole point is that it gives you the granularity of like, okay, this is what happens when I have Jinx. This is what happens when I don't have Jinx. And you can actually take some average outcomes from there, but it also tells you like what you should be doing with certain items like Shojin, for example, because that is something that is the subject of our conversation.
This is outside of the thing, but like I know this explorer is like just straight up better than the other one, but I hate the UI on this and I refuse to learn it.
It is better. It is better because there's actually even more powerful things that you can do. For one thing, I don't know if you know this, but there's actually a portals tab here, which is really interesting that people never thought about because they just use tactics.tool so much. And it might hint where some things may be better or worse, which is fascinating because some of it's misleading, right? I don't know. I don't necessarily think Rebels are that much worse on trainer golems. It's just that the power level spike is really high. That usually means that you played 7 Rebel and you missed on your trainer golems for 10 Rebels. But it's always just interesting because there's a lot of data there. And this is where stats become fascinating. And just for reference, place change is delta. It's the same word, but on tactics.tools, it's called delta. So I want to put that out there. Okay. We could honestly be here all day. So I want to just make sure we have some guiding questions to help push us through. Let's go a little bit into some of the territory that you talked about there. So how do we tell some stats are fake? Like, how is I supposed to know that Rage Blade onto Violet was bait, or like how do I avoid situations where I like know how do I know the Runins on Corky is bait? What are some surefire way to tell that some of those
Oh,
stats are bad?
Lord. There literally isn't one. It's basically just like if something looks wrong to you in like your intuition, like it's not necessarily that it is wrong, but you have to figure out like why. But the thing is, it's like you have to actually have that intuition in the first place. So I don't really know if there's like a heuristic or like guide to like immediately point out if like a stat is fake.
Okay.
But I would just say that like if something like looks wrong to you, you should investigate it further and like try to understand why it is looking that way. But I don't even know how to like explain like why something would look wrong.
Well, I
That's,
can pull up
yeah.
like kind of the example we were just looking at, which is the first thing is there are sample size issues is probably the number one thing. So like maybe just reset this real quick. But if you're playing on Corky, for example, and you're like, oh, I just want to sort purely based off delta, you can already start seeing some stuff that's like doesn't really make much sense. Like 121 games of Corky family emblem. Does this mean that Corky is amazing with a family emblem? Maybe not. It's actually probably like a trait track. So you're thinking like, why is that? It's like, well, it's probably because it's something like trait tracker or some kind of like scenario where you're playing scrap and you just don't care what you put on your units, just put items on your units for the scrap shield. You can start using some critical thinking. And that's actually where it drives home another point, which is stats can't often tell you the answer. They raise really important questions. And you have to use stats as a guiding point for conversation as opposed to saying this is the conclusion. And I think this is where I think people get stats really wrong is that stats help spark you to move on to the next step of understanding something better as opposed to saying this is correct. Now, sometimes it just tells you what is correct, right? If you can filter it, look what's the best item here, there's objectivity to that. But if you're looking for direction, the first important thing is to start asking the right questions. So we increase our sample size. Well, it turns out that Will Breaker is his best item here. That's again all contextualized because if you think about it critically, Will Breaker, and this is something that you can learn through TFTAcademy, but we recommend putting belts onto Corky. It turns out that 9 scrap turns things into rating items. Well, guess what? This is also a 9 scrap filter. So we have to filter that part out. And this is where sample size continues to make more and more sense. You're like, well, that's how many times they're hitting Trait Tracker. That's how many times they're hitting 9 scrap. And from there, you can start to decipher some of the traps. Just help use a little bit of that play rate and game sample size to help narrow it down.
Yeah.
Okay, Dishsoap. Oh, go ahead.
I was basically about to reiterate your point. I think you made it pretty well, so I'll just pass it on to you again.
All right, great. Okay, now Dish, so let's talk. Let's start asking just a couple harder questions because again, we're probably basically the way we're approaching stats is that there's an entire like universe. It's not even just a world. It's like a universe how we can go about it. I want to ask more intermediate questions. Just so, is there a way that you know what is the best unit to play on a certain level? Like, hey, if I'm playing a reroll comp, how do I figure out what's the best unit to play level 8? If I'm trying to cap out a enforcer board, how do I know what to play at 9? That's a little bit easier. The answer is 6 cost, but in the future, what are some ways I can figure that out?
This one like is pretty. Oh wait, oh god, can you put more than 3 filters on basic Explorer?
On three, so basic explorer is you can't do that. But
Oh
if you're talking
shit.
about specifically setting a level filter, you could actually, I
Oh no,
believe.
I don't care about level filter.
Okay,
But like on Advanced Explorer, like you could just put like the like your 7 unit like 3 cost reroll like board. Like
yeah.
you could
So
put all
let's do
seven
that
units
on the
of
meta
those.
TFT
Yeah,
because
yeah, yeah.
basically what you're saying is the basic explorer of Tactics Tools only gives you 3 options, but meta TFT can give us. So what's a composition that rolls for 7 units? Family or
Uh,
no?
I guess like Quick Striker, kind of.
Okay, Akali, Twist of Fate, Nocturne, Mbessa. And then we'll play the
Yeah,
Loris.
yeah. Just put in Loris. You probably don't have to put in the next 2.
Okay. So then what? What goes next?
And then we just go to the unit tab.
Ah, okay. Units.
And then we just look at frequency, which is what other people are playing, and then we look at the delta, and then you can see the like you just look at the combination of both, and you can see like the vast majority of the time people are playing the Rel, Aurelia, and Alawi on
Hmm.
the next 3 levels. So like you should probably just play those as well.
Okay.
Um, the other stuff might have better stats, but that's usually just when you go level 9. So you have to consider that. But yeah, I mean that might have been too easy to make. Like, what's an example where it like actually depends?
Where it's a little bit. I mean, let me look at the tier list real quick. What's like a tier list thing we could look at? What about how about we take a look at the emissary composition with Corky?
Okay.
So let's do because the thing with emissary, let's just play Garen, Tristana, Mbessa, and Nami, and then you play Corky, and then people have the other units. So what are the other units that goes with Corky here? Like,
Um.
there's the two variations. There's the Rumble, Rel, and there's the Gangplank Swain.
Yeah, I like the Sentinel version better. To me, this is like Rel Vlad, and then Loris or Rumble, and then you can play the
Okay.
TF.
So let's say you have this, and you're looking at what are the best remaining units to play here. And it looks like Rumble is very, very good. You could play Twisted Fate as well. He actually has some pretty good delta here as well because he also ties in the Quake Striker for Mbessa.
Yeah, I usually go Loris into Rumble here.
Okay. But it also shows you that, for example, going for a Sentinel just for the sake of Sentinel, like an Alawi, is also struggling a little bit. It's actually not particularly very good here.
I mean, that's just because he didn't make it. It's like
Right,
another
right, exactly,
yeah.
exactly. And so that's
So-
where like some of this data can be misleading, and you have to be very careful about that. But also figuring out like what your next unit is. So by typing in these units, it'll help you understand kind of the strength of where the team is and what units actually add value. Because you'll be surprised how some people who say that this is the next unit you play obviously won't contribute to it. I think one interesting example in the past was Black Rose, where a lot of people weren't sure about like what was the thing to play at 9, and it turned out that on certain boards we're playing like around Dominators, you weren't supposed to keep certain units at the time. Like when they nerfed Garen, you could actually take Garen out, but he was a positive delta. But people were so used to including him that they actually hadn't noticed that because he was actually like the spot that you had free because you had so much power at level 9 you didn't need him. So those are kind of small things that you should be looking at in terms of what units you should be adding at what levels. All right, dish soap. How do you tell when one trait X is better than Y? So let's say you're playing like uh how do you know when 4 sniper 4 watcher is better than 6 watcher 2 sniper? Stuff like that.
I mean, okay, so the way you do this is, I mean, you first have to identify like your actual carry, because that usually depends. Sometimes like your carry, like for example, in this theoretical, I don't really think this is true, but like in theory, like Zeri 3 needs to like ramp up, so like you might want more frontline for her than you would like a Twitch, for example. So you have to identify like which is your carry first. Is it like a Zeri 3? Is it a Twitch 2? Is it a Caitlyn 2, for example? Like if you're super high rolling. And then you can go to traits instead of items, and then we can. And the way I like to filter this out is I just go to the search bar, and then I type like sniper, and then you can do a comma to include other stuff, and then you can go like watcher, and then you can like even include like even if you're like trying to figure out like what front line to go for, you can include stuff like sentinel and like firelight just to get a good idea about everything, and then you can just look at the AVP and delta of this.
Okay. Well,
Um,
obviously 6 sniper is really good.
Yeah, and then if you like after you look at this, you can identify like, oh, like this trait, it looks really good. Can I get to this trait? And like, yeah, if I can get to this trait, what should I really be playing with this trait?
Mhm.
Um, and that's kind of how I look at it.
Okay. Yeah. Like right here, we can decipher a couple things, which is it looks like the Watcher variation and 6 Sentinel variation, there's a pretty noticeable performance gap. So, kind of indicating that you want to play around the Watcher variation of some kind. So, that already kind of like helps narrow things down. Okay, let's take out Sentinel here because it looks like it's not the ideal variation, although it's playable. It's something that we're not looking to do. Then we're starting to look at other things too, which is like if you're looking at Firelight, there's a huge jump between like all the variations of Firelight, and it looks like 4 Firelight is where it's really at. Otherwise, Firelight from 2 to 3, not that important of an increase, and that can give you hints as to say Echo, not that important for the composition for Zeri. And doing small things like that help you like chip at a way to figure out like what exactly is the composition.
Yep.
Um, and then if you want to get fancy with it, again, you could use the Advanced Explorer, which allows you to exclude things. So if we're doing Zeri, for example, you could exclude things like, well, what if I don't hit a sniper emblem or a watcher emblem or a firelight emblem? You know, what's the best way to do it? Turns out Zeri keeps losing a lot of edge when that happens. But you can look at it in the same exact way. Watcher, firelights. Well, we established it's not that important, and sniper, and you'll start to get like a better picture of what ends up happening. You can compare and contrast, and it turns out that for watcher kind of struggles a lot more when you're kind of stuck in that situation where you can't get a 6 watcher. So 6 watcher is pretty important for Zeri to be able to get it. So those are just like different ways that you can divide it. Um, there's also like other things to consider as well, and that's where I think using the filters, using you're going to hear the word filter a lot, but using the exclude function is really important, as well as using what you want to put in. My last question here, just to wrap this up, is what is your biggest secret when it comes to using stats website?
I mean, I don't know if it's a secret, but I talked to a lot of pro players, and I said this before. I really have not talked to many players that understand the importance of sample size, and it's actually kind of crazy to me. I don't know if like they're just taking these like sub 1k samples and be like, oh yeah, bet this is this. So I don't know. And I guess a part of that is I don't think people understand how much the stage 5 and stage 6 carousel impacts the item stats. Like that existing basically makes every single less commonly built item have good average. If you look at like just generic item AVPs, basically like the build rate and the AVP is like an inverse graph.
Oh,
Just because of that bias, and I don't like. I think people think that's like a minor thing that like sometimes happen. No, that's just like a very constant bias for basically every single item set in the game that you have to kind of understand.
that makes sense. That makes sense. Okay, that's a
And
good one. I mean, I have a lot of like random tips and tricks. I don't think I have like secrets. I guess maybe my dirty secret is that I like to filter for like GM plus and filter out regions. So one thing about Explorer that you have to understand is that it filters like these ranks. You don't have that much sample size for GM Challenger, but when I'm looking for very, very granular things, you can even take out certain servers and try to look at like what's happening in North America and Vietnam and like Korea, and like some of these more popular servers, and filter out some regions where they might actually be behind the meta, and you can actually like understand what's going on. So one thing, for example, is that Korea really loves quick strikers. There's actually multiple people playing quick strikers per lobby. They love it way more than North America, for example. So from here, I would probably look at like something like Akali, Twisted Fates, Nocturne, right, and like looking at this. And I would actually like try and specifically look at what Korea is doing at a very high level. And you get very little sample size, but you get to actually use this as a shortcut to specifically look at what the top players are doing only. Well, you have to update this, but you can look at the games, and then it'll bring you to like what's actually happening in those lobbies, and it gets you a little more context as to when it's succeeding versus not, because you can filter their placements. Like, okay, who are the high rollers and how's it working? And if you do that, it gives you a little bit of a hint as to specifically like certain clues about a composition of who has mastered it and who's actually getting results with it. But the reason why it's a secret is because this is exactly the problem with sample size. It's anecdotal evidence, and you have to like basically go through dozens of these in order to make any meaningful conclusion. But the benefit is, I'm not a pro player. I'm more of a guy who sits there and asks questions on coach streams. So it's easy for me to actually use this as a reference to post some interesting questions and let the smart people like Dishsoap answer them. So that's one of my secrets. All right. Oh, and then one other thing too that I want to go over is that you can actually use the Explorer to look at augment data in some ways. So, thing, for example, is you can simply type in a trait. We talked about this a couple times, but if you're curious about like how good Menaces is, literally, if you just type in Menaces, it'll show you just the raw average placement of this, and this is the equivalent of looking the raw average placement. Um, there are other ones where we talked about anger issues. So if you looked at like how good is family with anger issues, you could look at Violet, Powder, and you can type in Rageblade, 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 and then you start to see like, oh, it's actually like pretty good in this. And then you can like take out different units and play like how good is it in Zeri. It's not as good in Zeri, but it's still like pretty solid versus playing it like on Twitch and Mundo. And it turns out it's not very good. So you actually do have some ways you can look at augment stats. And all you have to do is think a little bit creatively about how to actually put them into the filter for the way that the end game screen would actually report it.
Yeah, and anything that actually shows up on end-game screen can show up in stats. So, like the stats for like kind of augments is like artifacts and like radiance. You can kind of somewhat figure out like because usually you're just getting those from augments.
Right.
So that it's kind of a consideration.
Do you have a couple of these tricks for explorers to see augment data on anything?
I mean, honestly, I probably do, but nothing is like coming to me right now. I also
There's a fun little trick that I have with Build Different, which is that you could put units that don't normally go together and remove
oh
their
yeah
traits.
yeah
So you could put
yeah yeah,
like
yeah.
Alawi and Vi, right? You put Alawi Vi, but then you play Enforcer, the traits, you play Rebel, the traits, you put Pit Fighter, the traits, and then you put did I say Rebel already? Rebel, the traits?
Oh, I just do this and I just put Twitch, no sniper, no experiment.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly. Like Twitch is another example as well.
yeah.
And then you look at it, and then you can see like, okay, these are like the units that are commonly played with a Twitch and Bessa Elise core. Okay, I'm basically looking at build different stats until you can start looking at some of those things.
You can also kind of filter hero augments as well because typically hero augments have a very different item build than
Sure.
the normal
So like
version of
Vlad
the units. Yeah.
with Archangels, because you're sure as hell not putting on Vlad on Archangels in the front line.
Okay. I think I would like probably put a second item like maybe the Gensu because it's 80% thing.
Sure.
'Cause I've seen the triple Archangel mage armor.
Oh, right. Archangel's BT or whatever. Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah.
And then you can start looking at some stats, and this will help you show you like, okay, what's the best third item on Vlad Hero Augment? What are the units I want to play? I mean, hell, you could look at some portals that it might be better on. Oh, component anvils. That makes a lot of sense because you can start building towards your best hero augment items as soon as possible without having to worry about your pick position and looking at items of it. And it's like, oh, it turns out if I look at these games, it'll show me a lot of people who had success playing the Vlad hero augment. So,
Yep.
cool.
I think every single hero augment has a very different item build. I don't think there's anything where it like matches up. So if you somewhat know the item build for them, like you could just check a tier list really quick. You can
Yeah, true.
Yeah. So if it yeah, you just see like oh if there's a Ginsu on this, I'll just look at Ginsu Vlad and I can figure out the rest.
All right, perfect. All right, Dishsoap. That's probably it for stats for now, unless you feel like there's other things that we want to cover at an intermediate/expert level here.
We can save that for a future episode.
I know. It's always fun doing a stats episode only because it feels kind of like we're just shooting randomly from the hip because it's just like there's so many different ways you can approach
Yeah.
stats and there's so many different pitfalls and ifs thens. The reality is, and maybe this is something we could do somewhere down the line, but maybe it's interesting to sit down and actually just do like a recorded session, just looking at stats and just listening in on conversation helps you understand how people read it a lot better because it's kind of hard to formally teach just by doing it itself. But hopefully, we give you a glimpse as to how to improve using stats through a multi different ways. And usually, these tips will help you just spark the right idea. Okay, got a question that we want to answer. This one is just kind of a specific one. Why does Wit's End perform so much worse than Bloodthirster on Steb? Shouldn't it be a better healing item?
So the thing you have to realize is that, or like just the thing about items in general that a lot of people don't really realize is that the base stats on all of the items actually do matter a lot for like whatever item being like BIS versus not. Most people like kind of just look at the effect and like be like that's the end all be all, but like the stats actually do kind of matter. For example, I think Whitson gives a lot of like attack, like it was like a decent amount of the item value is in the attack speed. I think it's like 30% attack speed, and that's not really something that's going to be that useful on like a step, for example. He's going to gain most of his mana from taking damage and stuff, and he's not going to be attacking at all when he's ulting. So you already have 30 of a stat that's like kind of dead. The magic just is fine. And then you have to consider like what are the other effects of the items. It's like bonus magic attack damage. It's like sure, he's not really going to be out attacking that much, but that's fine. Like you can still look at it and see like, oh yeah, heals the holder for 35% of all magic damage dealt, and then you can think to yourself like, yeah, that's more than the BT's 25%. Surely that means this is better. But then you have to realize that BT gives you a little bit of extra AP. It gives you the shield, which is really important for a bruiser unit. So like the HP you get from the item is probably similar. The 10% healing difference is probably made up by the fact that you're getting a shield from Bruiser. And then past that, like if the healing is basically the same, and then you could just compare the stats, and the stats that the item gives for Steb are better. And then you also have to consider like where are you getting this Wits End from? If you're getting it from like a free source like a loot subscription or like a Jace portal, it's probably fine, but maybe you want to put it on someone later. But if it's like your augment, you're probably just dead because like you're like gold augment, like your portable forge or whatever, it like cannot be a worse BT. So
That makes sense. Okay, last question here. Are you supposed to sell your unit after you get worth the wait 3-star?
I mean, you definitely can in some scenarios. I don't think you're. I don't like framing it in the way like you're supposed to. If the way you played out your game leads you to a comp that does not play your one cost, it is completely fine to sell it. Even if it's a 3-star. But typically, when you play this augment, most of the 3-star one costs can find their way into an in-game board in some way or another. And like if you take the worth the wait on like on 2-1, you'll have enough time to like kind of nudge your comp in that direction where like you usually don't want to sell it. Like now, I mean sometimes it doesn't happen, but I feel like most of the times it does happen. Most of the units are fine. But like I guess I'll say like if you do end up pivoting, it's completely fine to sell.
Okay. Okay. I would say if you're a person that's asking this question, chances are that you're also a player that might overgreed. And the one thing I will say is that don't be afraid to sell if you really need it for econ. So econ is very, very powerful in this game. And I do think that people really undervalue it because they're like, oh my God, going for the 4-star is like so sick. Or I can play two
Oh,
of these
oh,
3-stars.
oh, if they're asking for the 4-star, I like always sell that shit. The 4-star is the gigabait.
Oh,
I thought
okay.
they were asking
I
about
think
the
that's what the
3-star.
question was saying. Is it worth selling
Oh,
the worth the way
oh, oh.
past the 3-star?
Oh, I thought you were asking if like they should just sell the 3-star.
Okay, I was like really surprised. Okay, yeah, because that's the question is,
Okay.
am I supposed to sell it after the 3-star?
Oh, yeah. That shit is trash. Like, like okay, if it's like if okay, you can keep it if it's like a known meta one cost reroll unit and you have like the spot to actually carry it, because if you can actually make it to stage 6, the 4-star might actually help you win the game. However, most 1-stars aren't like that. Like, I mean, let me just look at units. I
Basically,
would,
like Zyra, I feel like is like one of
yeah, I mean,
those.
I would keep Zyra. I would like keep Morgana if I was playing Morgana reroll, like Visionaries, but like it would probably hard to get a blue buff. But like if you had it, you had it. I would maybe like I would keep Violet if you played Violet. I mean, I would probably sell Powder ages ago because if you're like playing like amateurs or for example like or family, you would probably need the money for other stuff. So I guess I would keep Zyra, maybe Morgana, and that's probably and Violet, and that's probably about it. I think everything else is just kind of pointless to go for.
Yes, yes. Please stop going for Maddie forward betrayal, guys. It's just not.
Yeah.
It's just not a thing. All right, great. And that does it for the last of our episodes. I think the next time we're gonna meet, man, you will be done with the World Championship, and we're gonna be focusing on the next set, set 14, which is exciting.
Yeah, for sure.
That's right. That's right. All right, Dish Soap. Any final words heading into the Tactician's Crown?
I mean, not really. I just hope I do well.
I think you will, man. After all, you're well prepped. You're well prepped. You're ready for this, man. I think everyone believes in you, and yeah, even regardless of it, I think it's just going to be a cool thing to just see so many people compete. It's a really stacked field. So I do think that ultimately everyone will be proud of you, no matter how well you do, man.
Thanks.
All right, have fun. Most importantly. Okay, so next time we see Dishsoap, he'll be a two-time world champion. You heard it here, confirmed.
Yep, 100%.
All right. If you are a big supporter of TFT Academy or you want to support more, check out our stuff over at TFTAcademy.com. We also have a Patreon. You can support us as well. Really appreciate everyone who does that to help go the extra mile for our website. Also, just as a PSA, I found out that 80% of our users ad block on TFT Academy, which is totally fine. You guys are very tech savvy, and listen, I totally get it. Ads suck. But I do think that one of the best ways to support, because some people don't always want to like donate or whatever, one of the best ways you can do it is to just whitelist the website, because that would literally, 4x, 5x our revenue if we're able to get on more of that. And that helps us fund more things for what we want to do with the website. So I just want to put that PSA out there, because I know that my
I know.
CFO will kill me otherwise.
I know, like, this probably it's hard to like. It's probably hard to hear from like someone that will literally just get money if you do this. But the thing is, the ads are not even that intrusive. Like on the site, this is coming from someone that literally ad blocks like everything. I could not stand to see an ad. Like it's actually fine on the TFT Academy site.
We deliberately turned down a couple. Like we're working with an ad agency for the website, and they said that you should be doing these video players, right? Where that if you click them, maybe it gives you better click through rates and increase your ads.
Yeah, I mean, they're just trying
jam pack more. We decline all that because we want to make it an actual good viewing experience, not just jam pack and smack you with a bunch of ads.
Yeah, they're just trying to make us like milk the 20%.
Yeah, and we don't want to do that, but at the same time, it would help us way more if you can whitelist websites. So that's just my PSA to wrap things up here. Big thank you to everyone. Good luck to Dishsoap, and that's it for set 13. It's been a fun set, pretty bounced. Looking forward to next set as well. So from Frodan and Dishsoap, it's been TFT Study Hall. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you guys next time.
Yeah, see ya.